Okay, so welcome to our community update for July 27th. Come on, Google, work with me here. There we go. Some quick community statistics for you is we now have a total of 79 open source developers in our GitHub. Who's going to be the lucky 80? We shall see in the next couple of weeks. We now have 1,174 GitHub stars. In the last couple of weeks, we have added 53 new community members to our Slack and 65 new community members that are spread across some of our other platforms. So of course, as always, welcome to all of our new and our returning community members. We are very happy to have you here. On July 19th, the 11.2 release came out. This included about 35 or so updates and bug fixes on top of the 11.1 release. Some of these featured updates include a couple of bug fixes, one in the error and custom properties creation and one in the edge generation when multiple tasks are created. We also added a service validation on the profiler workflow, as well as a number of UI updates from the 11.0 feedback. On top of that, we actually have the 11.3 release that is out today. So this included just a few updates on top of the 11.2 release. Some of those include a fix for the soft delete, as it should not be sending a hard delete for teams and users, a UI fix on the infinite load when a user first logs in. We also added a kill endpoint for the ingestion pipelines and a couple of performance improvements for our usage workflows. Now, while we're talking about our release process, I just wanted to give you an update or a reminder about our release philosophy here at OpenMetadata. So depending on what you're looking to actually do with OpenMetadata, you may want to wait for specific releases to upgrade. So if you're looking for a stable production-ready release, these would be our minor releases. This is 11.2 and now available 11.3. So any of these minor releases will have had an opportunity for feedback, bug fixes, and some minor UI updates. And this will actually make it a much more streamlined upgrade for your production case. However, if you are somebody who's been excitedly waiting for a new feature, you want to give feedback on that feature, you're super keen for it, then these would be our major or .0 releases. 11.0, and the next one, of course, would be 12.0. These major releases are to get our features out as fast as possible so that we can iterate and get that valuable community feedback to find out if we're on the right track or if we need to update and change the way that we're approaching a problem. So I just wanted to give a quick reminder on that release process.
Yeah, I think one comment there, Marisa, is given that we have lots of integration and we have lots of environments that bring their own complexity, variations. The .0 releases or the feature releases are super important for us to get feedback and testing from the community, because we won't be able to reproduce all the variations of table names and environmental variations, all of those things. So we would love to get community to help us with this. We have now around 50 different connectors, and every environment is different, naming conventions are different. So we would love to get community to help us out.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for that addition. While I've got everybody here, I also wanted to remind everyone that we do have a knowledge base that Shilpa has been working on. This is designed to be a resource for our whole community, and it's on our GitHub discussions. So this is a great place to check first if you had any kind of general questions about open metadata, how we run that type of thing, as it may already have an answer for you. If it doesn't, you feel free to open a question there or discussion topic. And to get to our link for this, it's actually bookmarked at the top of our Slack support channel. So I actually have a link for it here as well. I'm just going to quickly show you. So when you're in the open metadata, you just tab over to the discussions tab, and then all of our questions are here, and anything that is answered has a check mark, so you can see the green answered as well. Just wanted to take that quick detour to give everyone a quick show of where it is. Okay. All right, so now we're going to get a couple of updates from the team. So first, we're going to hear from Teddy, and he's going to talk about that data profile or performance improvement. And then we're going to get the privilege to hear from Harsha, as he's going to talk about our data quality API changes that are coming in our 0.12 release. So Teddy, would you like to share your screen?
No, we can keep the slide like that.
Sure, of course.
Yeah. So hello everyone. So regarding the updates around performance improvement, we have two set of optimization that we've been working on. The first one has been around the usage, where we're now caching some information, as well as improving the predicate that we are using, which help us improve quite a lot the execution of that specific workflow. And around the profiler performance improvement, we have been working on parallelizing the computation of the metric, so that that improvement should be available in 0.12. And we've run some tests on our side, and we've been able to reduce the processing time by about 70% when running our test. And we're not stopping there, as we will be working on parallelizing the computation of each table within a specific workflow, which should increase again or runtime by quite significantly. So two aspects that we've been working on: the improvement around optimizing the workflow for the usage, and optimizing the runtime of the profiler, which is split into two improvements. The first one parallelizing the computation of metric, and a second step which will be parallelizing the computation of the table. And I can show some number, actually, Marissa, around what our test has. Okay, so here you go. So you can see that we've run some tests, and we were able to decrease the runtime by about 70%. And that's just the first step. As the second step of
Maybe we can see that. Maybe you can zoom in.
Oh, yes, I can zoom in, sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, can you see better like that?
Yeah.
And then the second step, which would be parallelizing the processing of each table, will bring even more improvement to the profiler performance. And yeah, that's it on my end first.
Fantastic. Harsha, did you want to share your screen or anything?
Yeah, definitely. Right, okay, should done thingy. All right, for point 12, we're making a lot of improvements to the data quality and the profiler information, how we show, how we capture, and all the APIs along with the UI. So today in point 11 or from point 10 onwards itself, you can go to any table and get the profiler information and quickly add test through the UI itself, and define your test between using the profile information and using the data quality aspects here. So once you create the test, one needs to go and deploy into the services. In this case, I have a Redshift. I can add a profiler ingestion. So part of the profiler itself, we not only take all the tables that belong to this service, all the profile information. Obviously, you can filter out if some certain tables you're not interested in, but we'll take the snapshot along with the running of the test itself. So let's say you have 10 tables, and for 2 tables you created 5 tests each as part of the profiler workflow. We run all of them together. And the running frequency of those tests, it depends on how often your profiler runs. Although this is a good first step, especially creating tests and deploying them through the UI. This is by far probably the first in the industry. So far, you have seen libraries that do either through the command line, either through Airflow ingestion, but do it through the UI, we are kind of making it really simple for everyone to kind of deploy, understand their profile information and create a test and deploy it. But what we want to do is to go to the next level and improve this whole process itself. So to start with, everything in OpenMetadata is a schema-based defined approach, right? So we want to standardize the schemas through the entities as well as for the data quality itself. So in this case, we added a test definition. So you can see a table test and you can see the column test itself. And each of these table and column will have their own test cases defined. For example, table row count to equal, right? This is a test definition and accepts an integer expected number of rows, and it validates based on the user input. This is great. Not only this will allow us to kind of define the test much more cleanly, but it also allows us to generate the code in Java as well as in the UI when it's rendering the form, for example. Going back here, when you're clicking adding test, add test, this form is being rendered from the schema that we provided here. And similarly, Python code takes it and addresses this schema and runs the test for you, right? So it's great, but the limitation with this is, every time we need to add a test, we need to come here and kind of define the test as well, right? But each organization has its own, either they're using OpenMetadata data quality tool, or they're using one of the popular open source tools, they have their own homegrown. We want to actually allow and encourage everyone to kind of publish the test results, if not, run it from the UI itself. So with this approach, what we are doing is taking all of this specification that we have here and calling it as test definitions and allowing users to kind of create test definitions in programmatically through the API itself. By default, we ship a lot of test cases that we have, and this is the API endpoint right now. So you can see from here, column value lengths to be between, what is the display and description, what are the test platform that it supports. For example, this particular test case is supported by OpenMetadata and Great Expectations. And if you have any other, your own test platforms, you can continue to add the test platforms here. And the parameter definitions, what are the parameters this particular test accepts it, is it required or not, all the details that you can capture here. So the benefit of this is, let's say tomorrow we are going to add a DBT integration. So DBT has its own.
Sorry to interrupt you. Could you just make the screen a little bigger? We're having trouble seeing the code here.
Better?
I think so. Greg, is that better? Can we see? Yes. Yes. Thank you. Apologies for interrupting.
No, no worries. Yeah, so what I was saying is test definition is programmatically great. The reason for that is, let's say we have Great Expectation provider, right? So tomorrow, Great Expectation add another test, we can actually bring it dynamically, publish into OpenMetadata as a test definition, along with the test for it, and also the results. And again, we want to add DBT integration as well. DBT might have set up their own test. We don't need to continue to define into the OpenMetadata release itself. You can programmatically define those test definitions. Once you have test definitions, I do not have a good way of showing. Let me see if I can bring up my Swagger. So next thing is the test suite, right? So one of the limitations that we talked about in the existing data quality implementation is you need to deploy a profiler workflow, and all the tests going to run according to the profiler schedule. So what we are introducing is a test suite concept. With the test suite, you can create a test suite and say that, hey, here is my schedule that this particular test suite I want to run. And here are the tests that I'm gonna merge into this test suite, add to this test suite and group them together. And I can schedule it however I want. So an example could be, let's say you have a customer table, raw customer table. From there, you're doing a dimension And at the end, you're creating a dashboard in Tableau or Superset, Looker, whatnot. Now, together as a package, you can create a test on your raw customer if the data is landing on time, and into the dimensional table, making sure the data that is being transformed from raw customer to the dimension table are proper. For example, email, first name and last name are not empty, and all that test that you want to define. And together you can deploy that as a one test suite that is responsible for tracking the customer dashboard, right? So this will give you great flexibility on how do you want to group your test cases together, and how do you want to kind of schedule them at what cadence. So let's say you have an ETL, you want to trigger a series of tests. Once the ETL is finished, you can do that through the test suite concept. And lastly, so you have seen the test definition and test itself, right? So creating a test right now, you have multiple options here. One thing is entity, right? For example, which entity do you want to create a test against, right? Today, we're only going to support in the 0.12 release, creating tests against the tables. But later, we can continue to add these test definitions into Slayer and dashboards or in pipelines or ML models. So this entity is linked to how this test is being created, which against which entity it is getting created. Then the test definition itself, test definition in this case, which one of these test definitions are we using to create the test? The benefit of linking that is then we can do a validation against the parameter definition. For example, in this case, min length is required. We will check if you're using this particular test definition, if you're passing the parameter or not, then throw the appropriate error, right? Lastly, you have the test suite itself. So which test suite this particular test belongs to, right? So the benefit of having this is you can go to the UI and let's say click on the raw customer and look at all the tests that different users from different test suites are being defined here. So you have one look based on the entity itself. Then what we will add here is, where is my, we have activity task, I can have my data. Similarly, I can see my test suites. So you can, as a user, look at your own test suites and see how they are doing. Are the tests are passing on time or not, right?
So Harsha, a question. So far our tests were associated with just entities like table, and then they were being run one table at a time. Now you have a way to group them based on your use case across multiple entities like tables and all of that,
Yes.
as a test suite, right? Can a test from a table, right? Let's say I have column value between this range. Can that test be included in multiple test suites? Or can
That's a
it
good
belong to
question.
only one test suite?
Right now, I'm making a one-to-one mapping.
Okay, I think
that is okay. Good.
Yeah, you may want that kind of validation happening based on user use cases, and so tests should be part of multiple test suites, and maybe there is optimization where if it has has passed because of a another test suite run, the other test suites that have the same test case don't need to run it. Things like that can be added later, right?
Yeah, I think I can make a like the model change here.
Yeah.
So, to include multiple test suites.
Correct.
But for first 0.12, we will just, from the UI point of view, we'll limit it to add to one test suite. Correct. Then based on the user community feedback, we can improve it. That way we don't need to change the model. Correct.
So from the modeling perspective, it should be test suites as an array, right?
Yeah, I'll add that. Yes. So good feedback. The other thing I want to show here quickly is we are going to overhaul. This is again early mocks. So I'm going to show what looks like, and let's see, our customer. So today, when you look at the profile, our profile looks like a one-dimensional point in time data point. what you want to get to is something on these lines. It is work in progress. You'll see a lot more details here. But when the user lands in, we want to kind of showcase, what is the summary of the profiler itself at the table and column levels, and each column kind of showing, the details. What you will get right now, you do not have.
Can you zoom in into both the screens? I don't know.
Oh, I thought. Is it
Your
good?
screen resolution is too high. Okay, this is good.
Okay. Yeah, so what we will add is per column dashboard kind of an experience. So when you click, let's say in this case, an address ID, you will get a lot more richer details, right? So what is, hopefully it's viewable. Okay. So you can see what is the column summary, what is the table metric summary and everything else kind of, what are the test cases for this column are passing, all that stuff. And also per each metric that we collect, we show over a period of time how this particular column is trending. So you can actually filter it by, last 7 days, last, 14 days, whatnot. We are planning on showing up to last 30 days. And after that, the older data will trail off. So that's the approach. And similarly, the data quality page will also take an overhaul in these similar lines. And one last thing that we will do is also add the test notifications, which we missed so far. So as part of this change, you will get the test notifications. You can subscribe at the activity level at the webhook into the Slack as well. The benefit of that is, you can say that, hey, I want to subscribe to my test feed. I want to get notification whenever the test fails or passes, just send me notifications. So that part of the feature also available as part of this work. Any questions, any thoughts that you guys want to share?
The new this UI looks awesome.
Yeah, that's Devyani work.
Yeah, Devyani, this is really good.
Right. If there are no questions, again, if you want to share anything, if you have any concerns about how we are implementing or any improvements that you see that we can make, please either come to our GitHub issues, PRs, review it, or also you can chime in Slack if that makes it easier.
Thank you, Harsha. It really is looking fantastic. That'll be another exciting update. Okay, so just to finish off the last few minutes of our meeting, I always like to end it by highlighting some of our community contributions. The last time we talked about all the PRs that were opened by our community, we had a huge increase in the number of PRs that were opened. And this time I'm going to review some of them that were merged. So we have 8 merged community PRs in the last couple of weeks. We've had 4 alone from Francisco and 1 from Pedro, Resnick, and NNA077, as well as Marco, who is actually on our call today with us. Marco, thank you so much for your contribution. And so he actually did a pull request to the Helm charts OpenMetadata GitHub. So thank you to each of you for your contributions. I have a helper here, I apologize. So I also wanted to call out our community members that help us make OpenMetadata better by opening GitHub issues for us on all of the feedback that we get from our community is absolutely fantastic. Please keep it coming. And finally, I wanted to highlight some of the most active community members that we've had from the last couple of weeks. So this includes Pedro, Preeti, Nalish, Bohan, Raphael, Pauline, and Francisco. So thank you guys for everything that you do. And I just wanted to give the opportunity to open the floor to some questions. If anyone had any questions for us, we had a lot of exciting updates today.
Maybe not a question, but I'm going to steal your screen for a second.
Absolutely. Stop sharing for you. There you go.
Okay, thanks. So just wanted to let everyone know that we officially finished the documentation migration. It was an exciting exercise, right? Trying to find the right tool, trying to understand what were the pain points of the old migration by checking everything that all you folks like were asking or pointing out in the Slack chat. And this is the result right now. So hopefully this will help everyone find better the information, as well as also helping the open metadata developer community on improving how we can keep changing and iterating on the docs. So super excited about this one. If at any point in time you have some questions or any further feedback on how the docs look, on like things that you find better, things that you are now not able to find that before were there, any kind of comment here would be super appreciated, so that we can just keep improving and making everyone's lives better here. So yeah, thanks a lot. I don't know if you have any comments on this.
Ken said in the chat that he saw it this morning and he likes it. Senchin was asking how to contribute to this doc.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Ken. We took it really seriously. So I'm happy that you think that it looks great. And yeah, thanks, Sachin, on this question. So
this is where we are capturing metadata about open metadata. So we better get it right.
Yeah, at some point we will need to deploy our own open metadata instance. Let's see if we can find all the info here. But yeah, thanks, Sachin, for the question. So this is the repo for the docs, and in here you can find all of the information on how we are actually structuring everything. So as you can see, this repo actually lives separated from the main repo, right? This way we can just control here all of the source code that actually powers up the page with all the next components and so on. And from the main...
So Pere, we have built the documentation stuff from ground up, right? This is not using any commercial tool, none of that. So we have built it using an open source. We have built the tool from ground up.
Yeah, exactly. So part of the evaluation that we did here was something that it would really help us iterate faster and better on our documentation, right? Sometimes we were getting questions like, maybe this page is outdated, or I'm not able to find things about this new feature. And that was because we didn't have the right development workflow attached with the documentation workflow. So in order to being able to tune everything, as well as to create our own internal documentation templates, we decided to go with this new ground up solution, where we have an end-to-end control, not only in terms of the styling, but as well in terms of what components we bring to life that later on we can reuse when building the documentation. So things such as the requirements or even the layouts for the connectors, it's something that now we can easily reuse from connector to connector. Yeah, so now the idea is that the actual core definition of the page lives inside this repository, while the real content, right, the bread and butter that we want to show you folks, is actually living within the open metadata repo. This means that now from a single PR, we can keep updating the features, fixing bugs, and anything that we need to do, together with adding the required documentation, explaining or giving any further information on what we are actually doing. Then via some synchronization workflows, we are just able to pick up the contents from the main repo and automatically publish them into the final page. This means that if we now go into the OpenMetadata repo, we have this OpenMetadata docs directory. And in here, you can find content, images, as well as kind of the all YAML information that we put for the connectors. And inside of the content, you can just navigate and see absolutely everything that we're showing. This is just straightforward Markdown. So if at any point in time, some of you folks would like to contribute into the documentation, now it's easier than ever because you just can open a PR directly here, and all of these changes will get reflected into the final page. We have added here like a description on what the new layout can look like in terms of where to find information, as well as how to contribute if you want to change the core, the styling, add new components on the docs, or if you are just a contributor adding new content, right? So any information that you need to actually start playing with the docs, you can find it here. If the docs of the docs are something that we can improve, let's also do that, right? We want to make sure that this process is as easy as smooth as possible for anyone. And Sachin is asking, is the docs content in Markdown? Yes, it is. So in the docs here, we can actually use a couple of things, either directly the Markdown syntax, as well as any kind of components that we have defined here in the core documentation, such as how we are adding images, YouTube videos, tags for interesting things, such as this one, like all of these boxes, you can just directly add, for example. You can just directly add by referencing the components. So we have a lot of flexibility here on what we can add and how. Thanks for the question. So yeah, thanks. If there are no more questions on the documentation side, now we can open the floor. Thanks, folks.
Thanks, Perry. So did anyone have any questions for anyone today on any of the topics, or not on any of the topics? Oh, I can't find my chat box. Here it is. Oh, okay. If no one has questions for today, then we can give people a bit of their time back. And we'll end a little early.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for coming, guys.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.